Oh, hi there folks, Simon here, Aria's Pipe Smoker, and welcome to episode 4, I believe, of this year's How to Process Whole Leaf Tobacco series. This video is going to be examining and tasting the different Virginias that we have. There's 4 varieties, so I thought I would do a bit of a comparison between between the 4 rather, and taste each one and give my initial thoughts. These are all uncased at the moment. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to have to move the camera, so I apologise for any motion sickness, induced motion sicknesses. So yeah, let's carry on. Okay, so here, this is the reference leaf I've been using. This is a bright Virginia, or Virginia Bright, and this leaf here is Gold Virginia, and you can see, hopefully it will come out okay, the Gold Virginia is indeed somewhat yellower, dare I say more golden, compared to the bright Virginia. They're both similar thickness leaves. And they're very similar dimensions. Let me just pop you back down on the table. Oh. So the first thing I'm going to do is smoke some of this golden leaf. This may be of interest. Now, one thing I've noticed we'll get on to the other leaves shortly, but one thing these 2 varieties of Virginia have in common is they're not moist, as in they're not damp, but they're a little bit too damp to smoke actually. And this isn't because I've added water. I think it's to do with the curing process, because they're flue cured, which means they're kind of hung up in big barns and then they're blasted with a kind of hot air, warm air, and it only takes a couple of weeks for the curing process to take place. It's quite a fast way of turning a green leaf into a Virginia coloured leaf. And I think in this process, there's a commonality with this process, which means that the leaves stay in a relatively high case. They actually have a relatively high humidity trapped within the leaf. I'll show you later on today how I bring this leaf moisture content down, but I'm waiting for the sun to come out, so I'm not going to go into that at the moment. Now, how I prepare these leaves, hopefully we can get this, it's quite simply, I kind of roll it up. I'm going to double it in this case. I have my little opinel here. These carbon steel ones are very fragile, and the tip had snapped off this one, so I've ground it down with an angle grinder and sharpened it, so it's a kind of quite a nice, well, not really for reaming, but the bowl cleaning tool, and I've shortened the handle so it works as a tamper. Now, it's quite hard going smoking this, just because it's moist, it's uncased, but you can get the initial, you can get an indication of the flavour profile. think that'll probably be enough. I say it's a tasting rather than sitting down with a big relaxing bowl. Like I say, I'm going to include some unprocessed leaf with all the final product to send out to you guys, so you can taste the leaf in its raw state. You know, maybe there'll be enough there to possibly experiment with yourself. I'm not sure. We'll see how that turns out. And like I say, these Virginias, you can leave them overnight and they don't really dry out of their own accord. It's almost like they're hygroscopic. And obviously you leave it out in full sunlight, it will go crispy, but I don't really like using direct heat to dry tobacco out. But like I say, I'll cover that later on in the video, later on in the day when the sun comes out. I think I'll combine it as one video. So we've got sort of like a, you know, pretty rough cut. Well, I'm going to load up my bowl because I don't want this video to go on for an hour. So we'll cut back in when I've got it going, and I will do my best to describe my first impressions. So this is the Virginia Gold. I'm using my Meerschaum Bulldog as the tasting pipe, so it's the same pipe throughout the tasting process. Obviously this isn't going to ghost, and it makes a fair test of each tobacco. It's the constant, if we like. There's some sweetness there, as you'd expect. Now this one to me is more reminiscent of when I say bread, I don't mean a loaf of bread. More if you're making bread and the dough is in the proving process. It's kind of that warm, slightly creamy rising bread. Not really much, I'd say there's not much citrus elements here. Not so much of the kind of hay, straw notes. It's more rising bread, slightly creamy. I don't think I'm going to complicate these Virginias with elaborate casing recipes, and I'm probably not going to case them as heavily as Burleys and Kentuckys, because Virginia leaves can have 20% natural sugar content within the leaf. I was hoping to get more details, but my internet's gone down, so I can't really double check stuff. And I think the reasons Virginias have more sugar content, partly it's to do with the variety, and partly it's to do with the flue curing process. Kind of locks the sugars in and stops them degrading into other elements. So yeah, I guess moving on. Yeah, so that's the Golden Virginia. Is quite bready, quite creamy. I'm not smoking big bowls. I'm only having a few puffs because I don't want to get tongue burn from smoking raw tobacco. And so given that this bright Virginia is very similar I think this is going to be the next one I'm going to sample, so it's a bit of a side by side between the two leaves that are similar. So I'm going to repeat process. I'm going to cut away now, and we'll come back in when I've got this bowl lit up. Go. This bright Virginia, very similar taste profiles to the golden Virginia, the gold Virginia. I think there's a bit more of the kind of hay straw notes, and also the smoke seems to be a little bit more of an irritant, possibly. I can feel it in my nose a bit more after a couple of puffs. I can feel it on my tongue. I intend to send an email to the supplier, see if I can get some more information regarding the leaves or the country of origin. I mean, it could well be that this gold Virginia and the bright Virginia are actually one of the same variety, but the curing process is different, or one's been cured longer than the other. That would be my initial thoughts on this. It's very similar, this bright Virginia, but it's got a few more rough edges, a bit more irritating in the nose. Still got that bit less creamy. Still got that rising bread dough thing, but with a bit more of kind of hay, straw. Yeah, definitely more irritating on the retrohale in the nose. There is a difference in the smoke quality, and I can feel it catching my tongue already, so I'm going to say goodbye to that one and not ruin my mouth for the next few days. Okay, let me prepare the next one. Well, the next one in line is the orange Virginia, or Virginia orange as it's marked. I've already destemmed this, so I'm going to cut into a photo now compared to the bright Virginia leaf, so you can see the difference in colour and size. The taste of this is a lot deeper, and it does have slight orange notes, but rather than the fresh citrus, I don't know if any of you have ever tried putting some orange peel on top of a wood fire on the hot plate. It's more this deeper orange taste that you'd associate with more mulled wine, a bit of a deeper taste, slightly woody, slightly earthy. It's very pleasant actually. Once you get a sight, I mean, it's still catching the tongue. I still like, a slight acridness from smoking it in raw form. Now, and also I have a bag here. The smell of the bag is very, very different to the other Virginias we have on offer. And I kind of, again, I intend to email the supplier to possibly clarify this. I kind of have a theory that the gold and the bright leaves, there's a lot of consistency with the leaf size, the leaf condition, the colouring, and I suspect I'm getting ahead of myself. Compared to the orange Virginia, the leaves of the orange Virginia are all over the place. There's little ones, there's big ones. Some are flexible like leather, some are brittle and curled up. And my suspicions are that the orange Virginia is quite possibly of the same variety as the bright and the gold. The difference being is I kind of suspect that when they're growing out in the sun, obviously there's rows and rows of green tobacco plants, and the bottom leaves start to die off when they get close to harvesting time, and they will naturally brown in the sun. So effectively they're kind of sun cured, and part of me suspects that they go through the fields and they pick these sun browned leaves off, possibly the tips, I'm unsure, and put these to one side, and then a harvesting machine would possibly go in to get the main crop while it's still green and supple. Because obviously if you put a mechanical harvesting machine into a field and where you've got sun-dried leaves, these are just going to get broken, and it'll be a waste. You know, it'll be a percentage of the crop would go to waste with the mechanical harvesting process, because you know they're very brittle. If I can get one out, just to you know, if you scrumple it, bits fall off. So you can imagine a mechanical harvester going in. This is just going to turn to dust, blow away in the wind. And so part of me suspects that the orange Virginia is in fact a sun-cured Virginia, which kind of would explain the drastically different flavour profile. Yeah, but this, like I say, this does have the citrus, but in more of a cooked orange peel rather than a fresh lemon zest, or it's got some depth to it, some earthiness, some woodiness. There's some sweetness there, but very, very different flavours to the previous two leaves. I'm starting to gurgle, so I'm going to go and get a pipe cleaner and move on to the next one. So now I'm on to the Italian grown Virginia leaves. Again, I'm going to move the camera, so I apologise for any motion sickness. Now you can see side by side of our bright Virginia reference leaf, it's a lot darker. It's a lot thicker. It's a lot. The actual leaf is possibly about twice as thick, and it's hard to judge, obviously. A lot more leather-like. And if we look into the bag, you can see it's very itty-bitty. There's not much consistency in the size of the leaf. Here and there in places you can see where the leaf isn't quite as fully cured. And when I say fully cured, there's little bits of green left from the chlorophyll. Was it chloroform? Chlorophyll? Chloroform, isn't it? No, chlorophyll. I always get the two muddled up. It's a mental block. I'm sure you all know what I mean. And again, it makes me wonder, because obviously, for example, if these big leaves are grown in America, it's probably come from a lot bigger farm, a lot more mechanised, a lot more industrial, whereas I would imagine Italy doesn't have a massive tobacco industry, so I would imagine that these leaves are coming from smaller producers. And again, the flavour profile, it's not so dissimilar to the orange Virginia. Except it is actually more citrus in the sense of you know, like lemon zest, that kind of sort of fresh, tangy citrus. Still got some depth to it. Still got some nice sweetness. It probably looks the worst. The presentation of the leaves, the its and the bits, but I think actually, flavour-wise, it's probably my favourite. And again, given the state of the leaves, they're a bit raggedy-taggedy, not much consistency with size. This is what I'm talking about. Quite dry and brittle. Possibly it has been air cured or sun cured rather than flue cured. It's actually quite pleasant. It's probably the one that is closest to, if you smoke a pure Virginia, something, I don't know, like Capstan or Full Virginia Flake, that kind of flavour profile of Virginias, straight out of the bag. This is the one that is probably the closest so far, I would say. And also because it's that much drier than these leaves, it's smoking nicer. It's not so aggressive on the tongue. Quite a relatively smooth retrohale. It's not not irritating. Which again, I think it's down to the curing process. Obviously, something that's fast cured, there's so much of the stuff we don't necessarily want is trapped in the leaf because it's a fast process, where something that's been sun cured or air cured, I think, is actually a longer process. So various compounds within the leaf have more time to transform into compounds that we actually do want. I'm actually enjoying this. Yeah, win for Italy. Okay, I'm going to move on to the final one now. Now, lastly, and by no means least, we're on to the German-grown Virginias. Again, I've already destemmed this, so I'll splice in a photo showing the difference between the whole leaf German and the bright Virginia reference leaf, so you can see the colour differences. Now this lays, let me just show you inside the bag. Hopefully this is coming out. Now, this lays somewhere in between the bright Virginia, the golden Virginia, that flavour profile, and the orange Virginia, Italian Virginia flavour profile. This is kind of almost, I'd say, slap bang in the middle of the two. It's got that warm, bready, slightly creamy, but with a bit more depth, woodiness, citrusy of the orange in the Italian Virginias. The leaf consistency is, as in the size, the shape, was a bit more consistent than the Italian, but it is still a little bit all over the place. Maybe we can possibly see on this tip we have the yellow of the cure, and then we have a browning here. And again, I think it is possibly cured in a different way, but hopefully they'll get back to me, the supplier, and I'll send them a provisional email seeing if they can answer my questions before I send an in-depth email, and it'd be interesting to find out. Again, it's reasonably pleasant to smoke. Once you get past the, tongue stuff, and I think it's leaning slightly towards the Italian and the red Virginia, rather than being slap in the middle. It's probably steering slightly more in that direction. But what I intend to do, I'm going to give these all a relatively simple casing, probably just white sugar, water, vinegar, and not so heavily cased, because like I said, Virginias have a lot higher sugar content than Burleys and Kentuckys. So it's not like we're trying to sweeten the leaf. We're actually using the sugar for the other reasons which I mentioned in the previous video. What I'm hoping, just to make my life easier, I'm going to get them cased up, and I'm going to try mixing them all equally, a small sample, just to mix them all equally, to see how they behave together, because obviously with all of the varieties that we have now, there's 12 varieties, so the possibilities of different ratios and percentages is almost infinite with 12 varieties. So it may or may not work like this, but what I'm hoping is that these Virginias will work well together. If they work well together in equal amounts, it makes life so much easier, because then there'll just be a generic Virginia mix with which to then experiment, putting the different burleys and etc. and different elements in. So I'm kind of hoping it will pan out like that. I'd like to make some Cavendish, so I'm probably going to use, in my opinion, the weakest of all these Virginias is probably the bright leaf Virginia, as in terms of character, and like I say, it's slightly more acrid, slightly more irritating. So as this is probably the weakest Virginia for immediate smoking, I think this is a good candidate to possibly dedicate, a good few 100 grams, make some Cavendish out of this one, just to add some sweetness and some bulk possibly to the Kentucky blend. I'm trying not to think too much about blending at the moment, but obviously it's coming into my mind, this would go well with that. There's ideas floating, but I'm trying not to get too concrete with them at this stage. I've ordered 100 grams of Latakia, which isn't very much, because I don't intend to make a lap bomb, but I haven't even got round to tasting the Orientals yet, but I'm thinking one of the blends that would be quite nice to make is a bit of more of a Balkan blend than an English blend, and just putting like maybe 10% Latakia, something like this in there, just to give a bit of smokiness, bodiness. So that hopefully should be here sometime this week. A good friend of mine in England has thrown in some 100 grams or so of Louisiana Perique. So that will go in at some point. So until I get all the components in, until everything's cased, then I will really start anchoring down some rudimentary blends, and take it from there. It's probably going on quite a long time, this video. I was planning on possibly tagging on to the end of this how to bring the case down, how to bring the humidity of the leaf down in a controlled manner. But I think I'm probably going to do another video of that, which I'll upload the next day, just to keep each video sort of concise and on subject, as it were. So I think we'll call it a day for this one. I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, I mean, there's as you can see, there is these are only 4 varieties of Virginia. There's a lot more out there, and there is a huge difference from one end of the spectrum to the other. Actually, there's similarities, as in the inherent sweetnesses, but the flavour profiles are quite different from one end to the other of what we have available here. So yeah, food for thought. Yeah, so I'm going to sign off, get on with the rest of the day, and we'll see you tomorrow, I'd imagine. Okay guys, take care. Thanks for watching. I hope it's been of some use, and see you soon. Take care now.